falling in love with my new curves. The sharp metallic crash of a security gate rolling shut shattered the silence, like a judge's gavel. Andrew jerked upright in his chair, his book slipping from his hands. The page he had been reading instantly lost all meaning. That sound was unmistakable. A surge of alarm shot through him. Before he could fully process what had happened, he was already sprinting down the corridor, shoes squealing against the polished tiles. His pulse pounded in his ears as he raced toward the main entrance. The glass doors stood gleaming beneath the dim parking lot lights. Beyond them stretched only darkness and rows of vacant parking spaces. Every car was gone. No way. He seized the handle and yanked. Nothing. Locked tight. Pressing his forehead against the cool glass, he searched desperately for movement outside. A security patrol, a janitor, anyone. There was nobody. The empty parking lot stared back at him like an abandoned stage after the final curtain had fallen. His stomach twisted. How had he stayed so long? He had only intended to finish one chapter, then another. Somewhere along the way, the evening had vanished without warning. His hand moved automatically toward his pocket.
His phone. Dead.
Naturally. Earlier, he had drained the last of its battery while using the flashlight to search the lower shelves of the bookstore. Now it was nothing more than a useless slab of plastic and glass. Slowly, Andrew turned around. The shopping center felt transformed. The familiar daytime soundtrack, conversations, footsteps, cash registers, laughter, had disappeared completely. In its place lingered only the distant hum of ventilation systems and the gentle splash of the decorative fountain. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in a pale glow that made everything seem unreal. The mall looked less like a place of business and more like the forgotten set of a movie after filming had wrapped. A knot of anxiety tightened in his chest.
He was trapped.
His parents would be calling, worrying, wondering where he was. His dead phone meant he couldn't even reassure them. He needed to find help. A security office, an emergency phone, something. Then he noticed something unusual. Not every store had been completely secured. At the far end of the corridor, the department store's metal gate hung halfway down. The opening beneath it was large enough for someone to slip through. Beyond a gap, rows of clothing racks stretched deep into the shadows. The nervous flutter in his chest shifted into a different feeling altogether. Curiosity, excitement, something he rarely allowed himself to acknowledge. He was entirely alone. No shoppers, no employees, no judgment. His feet carried him toward the store before he consciously decided to move. The partially lowered gate seemed almost inviting, as though it were quietly offering him entry into a hidden world.
He ducked underneath.
Inside, the store felt enormous. During business hours, it was packed with customers weaving between displays and checkout lines. Now it stood silent and motionless, its aisles stretching endlessly beneath the dim emergency lighting. Shadows pooled between the racks. Mannequins stood frozen like silent spectators. His gaze drifted across sections he knew well: menswear, electronics, home goods. Then it settled on the area he always pretended not to notice, the girls' section. Even from a distance, it drew his attention. Bright colors softened the darkness. Dresses swayed faintly in the circulating air. Sequins sparkled whenever they caught the light. Mannequins displayed outfits that seemed impossibly elegant and carefree. Andrew swallowed. In countless private thoughts and secret daydreams, he had imagined exploring clothes like these, but reality had always placed obstacles in the way. Crowds, embarrassment, questions he wasn't prepared to answer. Tonight, there were no obstacles. Just silence. Just opportunity. Just hours of empty night ahead. He stepped forward cautiously. Then another step. A mirror caught his reflection. Staring back was a thin teenager wearing faded jeans and an old Nirvana shirt. Dark hair hung across his forehead. His expression was a strange mixture of fear and anticipation. Terrified. Excited. Both at once. He glanced over his shoulder toward the empty corridor beyond the gate. Then back toward the sea of colorful clothing. Endless possibilities waiting quietly on racks and shelves. His heartbeat quickened. "Okay," he whispered into the stillness. The single word sounded tiny inside the vast store, but it was enough. Andrew took a breath and walked forward, deeper into the colors, the fabrics, and the dreams he had spent years keeping locked away. As he approached the nearest clothing rack, his hands began to shake. Up close, everything felt even more overwhelming. Soft fabrics brushed against one another. Patterns blended into an explosion of color. Textures he had only admired from afar surrounded him on every side. For a moment, all he could do was stand there and stare. The night had only just begun. Patterns and colors stretched across the racks in endless variety. Soft florals, bold stripes, minimalist solids, and playful prints. Some fabrics looked impossibly smooth, while others reflected the pale emergency lights with a faint shimmer. Andrew's hand hovered uncertainly above them. He reached forward, hesitated, then finally let his fingers brush against a cotton top. The contact sent an unexpected thrill through him. It was only a shirt, a simple piece of clothing. Yet somehow it felt like much more. The garment was cream-colored, crossed by soft pink and white stripes. Casual, ordinary, the kind of thing he had passed countless times without a second thought. Now it felt impossible to ignore. He slipped it from the hanger and held it against himself. A medium, his size. At least close enough. The store remained silent around him. No employees, no customers, just rows of clothing and the distant hum of emergency lighting. Before he could talk himself out of it, he pulled off his own t-shirt. Cool air brushed across his skin, sending a ripple of goosebumps down his arms. With a quick breath, he gathered the striped top and slipped it over his head. The fabric settled against him like it belonged there. Immediately, he noticed the difference. Instead of hanging loosely, it followed the shape of his frame. The sleeves rested neatly around his arms. The neckline sat lower and wider than anything he usually wore, drawing attention to his collarbones. The cotton felt incredibly soft, almost luxurious, gliding comfortably against his skin. His gaze drifted toward a nearby mirror. He stopped cold. The reflection staring back at him was unmistakably his, yet somehow altered. The fitted shape highlighted his slim build. The striped pattern subtly changed the proportions of his silhouette. Even his posture seemed different. He ran his hands over the fabric, feeling how naturally it moved with him. "Oh!" The word escaped before he realized it. Turning slightly, he watched the shirt shift and settle with each movement. The sleeves hugged comfortably. The stripes curved around his body in ways he had never paid attention to before. For the first time, clothing felt less like something worn out of necessity and more like something expressive. And suddenly, one shirt wasn't enough. Nearby, a rack of skirts waited. Andrew found himself drifting toward it almost automatically. There were dozens of styles: sleek pencil skirts, flowing maxis, playful minis, and sporty designs. One in particular caught his attention. A navy-pleated athletic skirt with a subtle metallic thread woven into the fabric. Practical, lightweight, and surprisingly stylish. His pulse quickened as he lifted it from the rack. This was really happening. With nervous fingers, he unfastened his belt and stepped out of his jeans. Standing there in the striped top and boxers, he couldn't help recognizing how absurd the situation would look to anyone else. Yet, the excitement outweighed the embarrassment. Carefully, he stepped into the skirt and pulled it upward. The material brushed gently against his legs as it settled into place. The sensation was completely unfamiliar, yet strangely enjoyable. He fastened the waistband, holding his breath for a moment. It fit
perfectly.
He took a cautious step. The pleats swayed. Another step. The skirt moved effortlessly with him. Light and unrestricted. Cool air brushed against his legs. Every motion created a subtle ripple through the fabric. Curiosity replaced hesitation. Andrew turned in a small circle. The navy pleats flared outward before settling back into place. Tiny strands woven into the material caught the light and flashed briefly like distant stars. He came to a stop in front of the mirror. For several long seconds, he simply stared. Not because he couldn't recognize the person looking back at him, but because for the first time all evening, he felt as though he was seeing himself from an entirely new perspective. The striped shirt disappeared neatly into the waistband of the navy skirt, creating a silhouette Andrew barely recognized. He stared at his reflection, surprised by what he saw. His legs he had spent years dismissing as too thin and awkward, suddenly looked balanced, even graceful. The skirt's hem rested just above his knees, and somehow everything seemed to fit together. "Wow," he whispered into the silence. His voice sounded strange in the empty store. "This is actually happening." He couldn't stop moving. Back and forth he walked in front of the mirror, fascinated by the way the pleats responded to every step. The skirt swayed lightly, bouncing with a rhythm he could feel as much as see. Curious, he gave a small hop. The fabric flared outward. A laugh escaped him. For years he had watched skirts move from the outside. Now he understood the sensation firsthand. The effortless motion, the freedom, the simple joy hidden in every turn and step. A grin stretched across his face until his cheeks hurt. Again and again, he smoothed the skirt with his hands, tugged lightly at the striped top, reassuring himself that none of this was imaginary. The feelings swirling inside him refused to settle into a single word. Excitement, relief, happiness, recognition. Maybe all of them together. Across the aisle, another section caught his attention. Dresses. Rows and rows of them. Beyond those were more skirts, colorful sweaters, fitted jeans, scarves, belts, and countless accessories whose purpose he couldn't even identify yet. The entire store suddenly felt less like a retail space and more like unexplored territory. Andrew glanced at the mirror one final time. The person staring back looked brighter somehow, more confident, more alive. A smile tugged at his lips. "Let's keep going." With that, he headed deeper into the store, the soft swish of pleats accompanying every step. The girls' section turned out to be an unexpected treasure chest. The clothing here felt bolder, more playful than anything he'd explored so far. Bright graphics covered t-shirts. Hoodies sparkled with glittery lettering. Denim came in shades and washes he never knew existed. One shirt immediately grabbed his attention. It was white with a cartoon avocado wearing sunglasses and a ridiculous slogan printed beneath it. The design was completely silly. He loved it. Minutes later, the skirt had been replaced by a pair of pale denim shorts that sat comfortably at his waist. Unlike his usual jeans, they actually stayed where they belonged. That realization startled him. He hadn't noticed how often he adjusted his regular clothes until he no longer had to. Combined with the graphic tee, the outfit gave off an effortless summer vibe. Andrew lifted his dead phone and thought, "I'm taking a selfie anyway." For a moment, he imagined posting it somewhere complete with a clever caption nobody would ever read. The next discovery was a pale yellow crop top decorated with tiny embroidered daisies. Holding it up made him hesitate. Wearing it was another matter entirely. When he finally pulled it on, a narrow strip of skin showed at his waist. The sight felt unexpectedly daring, a little rebellious, and strangely fun. He paired it with sleek black leggings from the athletic section. The comfort was immediate. The fabric moved naturally, stretching without restriction and sitting perfectly in place. Curious, he raised his arms overhead and twisted from side to side. Nothing shifted. Nothing bunched. Nothing sagged. He studied himself in the mirror. The outfit was incredibly simple, yet somehow it worked. He looked like someone heading to a fitness class, grabbing coffee afterward, or simply enjoying an ordinary afternoon. Normal, comfortable, confident. Further down the aisle, a collection of sundresses practically demanded attention. The choices seemed endless. Soft florals, bold patterns, solid colors, designs that looked hand-painted. After several minutes of indecision, he chose a coral dress with a fitted top and a flowing skirt. The changing rooms were only a few feet away, but by now he barely noticed them. The dress slipped easily over his head. The zipper on the back proved more challenging, requiring several awkward attempts before he finally managed to fasten it. When he turned toward the mirror, the skirt floated around him. The movement was completely different from the athletic skirt. Lighter.
Softer.
More dramatic. He spun once, then again. The fabric blossomed outward in a colorful circle before settling back into place. Laughing, he spun a third time. His old clothes had always seemed designed to blend into the background. They existed to be practical, forgettable, invisible. These clothes felt different. They moved. They expressed. They demanded attention. And somehow he didn't mind. A denim jacket embroidered with colorful flowers soon joined the outfit. The contrast fascinated him. Soft dress, rugged jacket, delicate and casual existing together. Later, he swapped the coral dress for a sunny yellow one with narrow straps while keeping the jacket. The result made him grin. He looked like he belonged in the background of a music festival advertisement or maybe a summer music video. The athletic department offered a completely different surprise. He had expected little more than smaller versions of men's workout clothes. Instead, he found an explosion of creativity. Leggings patterned with geometric designs, running shorts layered with hidden liners, bright colors everywhere, lavender, mint, coral, turquoise. The section felt less like sportswear and more like a celebration of movement itself. Andrew wandered deeper into the racks, eyes wide with curiosity. For the first time that night, it wasn't just about trying on clothes. It was about discovering possibilities he had never allowed himself to imagine. He changed into a matching set, leggings in a deep purple with a subtle geometric pattern and a coordinated white sports bra. The leggings were high-waisted and compressive, holding him in a way that felt supportive rather than restrictive. He did a few experimental squats, then jogged in place, watching himself in the mirror. Everything stayed exactly where it was supposed to. No riding up, no shifting around. "This is engineered," he said aloud, impressed. He'd always thought athletic clothes were athletic clothes, but clearly he'd been missing out on some serious design innovation. A display of swimwear caught his eye, and he hesitated. That felt like a bridge too far, somehow, too revealing, too vulnerable. But then again, he was alone, and he'd already crossed so many bridges tonight. He grabbed a one-piece in a retro style, high-necked with a keyhole cutout at the chest and high-cut legs. In the mirror, it looked like something from an 80s workout video, and he found himself posing ridiculously, hands on hips, chin up. He changed back into the purple leggings and sports bra, then wandered into the misses section. The clothes here were more polished, more adult. Blouses with buttons and collars, slacks with sharp creases, dresses that came with matching blazers. He felt like he was trying on potential futures, the person he might be in an office somewhere, wearing a burgundy sheath dress and kitten heels. He didn't dare try the heels. Walking was enough of a challenge. A wrap dress in a navy blue, with white polka dots practically called his name. He'd watched enough fashion shows on TV to know how wrap dresses worked in theory, but the practice was trickier. It took 3 tries to get the tie right so the dress actually closed properly. When he finally managed it, though, the effect was worth it. The wrap style created a V neckline and emphasized his waist in a way that felt impossibly elegant. He paired it with a cream cardigan, soft as a cloud, and decided he looked like he should be having brunch or attending a garden party, neither of which he'd ever done, but he could imagine it now, sitting at a table with mimosas and pastries, laughing with friends, wearing this exact outfit. The lingerie section loomed in the corner, and Andrew approached it with considerably more trepidation than he'd felt about anything else. This felt more intimate, somehow more personal, but curiosity won out. He examined the displays, bralettes in lace and cotton, camisoles, things with names he wasn't entirely sure of. He settled on a simple cotton bralette in soft pink. No padding, just fabric and support and matching panties. In the bathroom, he drew the line at changing on the sales floor for this. He tried the bralette on under the sports bra. It felt nice, different, not constraining, but present, a gentle awareness. The panties provided surprising comfort levels he hadn't anticipated. When he emerged, he caught sight of himself in a full-length mirror and paused. The purple leggings, white tank, the hint of pink straps visible at his shoulders. He checked for VPL and saw no such fashion faux pas. He looked like 100 other people he'd seen at the gym or grocery store or coffee shop, completely unremarkable in the best possible way. He went back to the racks with renewed energy, pulling items almost at random. A tie-dye t-shirt dress that hung loose and comfortable. Skinny jeans in black that actually deserved the name skinny. A pleated midi skirt in forest green that swished when he walked. A hoodie in soft pink with a kangaroo pocket that he immediately filled with his hands. Each piece taught him something. The dresses showed him how fabric could move independently from his body. The structured clothes demonstrated the power of tailoring. The athletic wear proved that comfort and style weren't mutually exclusive. The casual pieces revealed that effortless looks took more effort than they appeared. Getting a t-shirt to tuck just right into jeans was apparently an art form. He found himself in front of a clearance rack pulling off a sequin top that probably cost more than he'd ever spent on a single item of clothing. It was utterly impractical. Silver sequins that caught every bit of light, meant for parties he'd never been invited to. He put it on anyway, pairing it with simple black leggings. In the mirror, he sparkled, literally sparkled. He moved his arms and watched light cascade across his torso. It was absurd and flashy, and completely wonderful. He did a little dance, watching himself shimmer, and laughed at the sheer ridiculousness of dancing alone in a department store at midnight wearing a sequin top. But that was the thing. He could be ridiculous here. He could try on clothes that didn't match. Could pair athletic shorts with dressy tops. Could wear things in combinations that would never work in real life. There were no rules, no one to impress, no judgment. The freedom of it was intoxicating. He changed into a floral maxi dress that pooled at his feet. Too long. Clearly meant for someone taller, but beautiful anyway. Then a romper in coral that made him look like he belonged at a beach resort. Then back to the athletic section for another pair of leggings. These ones with a colorful abstract pattern. Time became elastic, stretching and contracting. He had no idea how long he'd been at it when his stomach growled loudly enough to echo off the store walls. Andrew looked down at himself, currently wearing gray joggers and a fitted purple hoodie, and realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten.
Food.
He needed food. The shopping center had a food court, and presumably the convenience store would have something edible. But first, he took one more look around the department store at all the clothes he'd tried, at the many different versions of himself he had discovered in the past few hours. "Thank you," he whispered to the empty store, to the racks and mannequins and mirrors. Then, still wearing the joggers and hoodie because why not? Because they were comfortable. Because he could. He headed out into the mall to find something to eat. The pleats and sequins and florals could wait. He had all night. And he was hungry for food now, not just for the dreams hanging on racks and folded on shelves. Though he'd definitely be back for more of those dreams after he ate. Chapter 4. Midnight Feast. Soul Food. The convenience store's automatic doors opened with a cheerful chime that seemed absurdly loud in the silent mall. Andrew wandered into the convenience store carrying the easy confidence that had slowly grown throughout the night. He picked up a basket and drifted through the aisles without any particular plan. A chicken Caesar wrap went in first, then a container of mixed fruit, a bottle of cola, a packet of crisps, a chocolate bar. At this point, self-control seemed unnecessary. The evening had already abandoned normal expectations hours ago. Basket full. He returned to the deserted food court and settled into one of the plastic chairs that somehow managed to be both rigid and uncomfortable no matter how you sat in them. The fountain at the center of the court provided the only real movement in the vast open space. Water cascaded softly over polished stone while hidden lights beneath the surface shifted through colors. Deep blue becoming violet, violet becoming emerald green. Andrew unwrapped his meal and ate slowly, watching the reflections dance across the floor. The mall felt completely different after midnight. Without crowds flooding the walkways, the building revealed details he'd never noticed before. The soaring ceilings, the geometric patterns built into the skylights, the graceful curves of connecting corridors, the carefully arranged planters and benches. Everything felt deliberate, almost artistic. It reminded him of standing backstage after a performance, seeing the set without the actors. The illusion stripped away. A dark cafe window reflected his image back at him. Purple hoodie, messy hair, a faint smudge of makeup near one cheek from a cosmetics counter he'd experimented with earlier. He looked exhausted, but happy. The kind of happy that settled deep in the chest. The chocolate bar turned out to be ridiculously sweet.
Perfect.
He washed it down with the last sip of cola and stretched his arms overhead. His muscles protested pleasantly. Hours of walking, changing clothes, and exploring had left him tired, but not ready to stop. Not even close. There was still so much left to discover. As he wandered away from the food court, a boutique near the fountain caught his attention. Vintage Rose. The elegant lettering curled across the storefront above mannequins dressed in styles from decades past. Normally, he would have walked right past. The shop always looked expensive, intimidating, like the sort of place where sales associates judged customers before they even touched the merchandise. Tonight, however, the lights glowed softly behind the glass. The door stood unlocked. The invitation felt personal. He stepped inside. The air carried a surprising fragrance. Lavender, old paper, a hint of cedar. Individually, they shouldn't have worked together. Combined, they felt comforting, almost magical. The boutique organized its clothing by decade. One corner celebrated the 1950s. Another overflowed with 70s-inspired fashion. Further back sat racks dedicated to grunge, vintage formal wear, and retro accessories. Andrew gravitated toward the 50s section first. Full skirts, structured bodices, polished silhouettes. Everything looked designed for movement and elegance. A mint green dress immediately caught his attention. The fitted top featured delicate cap sleeves, while the skirt exploded outward in a dramatic circle. After wrestling briefly with the zipper, he finally got it secured. The transformation was instant. Layers of fabric beneath the skirt held its shape away from his body, creating volume he had never experienced before. Curious, he spun. The skirt flew outward like a blooming flower. For a moment, it seemed suspended in midair before settling gracefully around him. He spun again, faster. The boutique blurred around the edges. Mint fabric became a swirling ring of color. Laughter escaped him. Suddenly, he understood those old black and white movie scenes where actresses twirled across dance floors. The feeling wasn't just visual. It was physical. The sensation of occupying space without apology. The confidence of movement. The joy of motion itself. Eventually, he slowed, slightly dizzy but grinning. The fitted bodice felt snug enough to suggest there were additional layers or accessories the original design expected. Even so, he loved the look. He resembled someone who belonged in a faded yearbook photograph from another era. Next came a flowing 70s-inspired maxi dress. Burnt orange fabric. Bold geometric patterns. Dramatic bell sleeves. The contrast to the structured 50s dress couldn't have been greater. Everything about it emphasized freedom and movement. The sleeves fluttered with every gesture. Andrew found himself waving his arms, simply to watch them move. He looked ready for a music festival from half a century ago. Or perhaps a passionate protest march. Either seemed equally plausible. Further along, a display labeled Cocktail Collection drew him in. Remembering every fashion article that insisted everyone needed a classic black dress, he selected one and slipped it on. The design was remarkably simple. No dramatic patterns. No elaborate details. Just clean lines and expert tailoring. Yet somehow it transformed him more effectively than many of the flashier outfits. The dress followed his shape naturally, creating a polished silhouette that made him appear taller and more refined. It was proof that simplicity could be powerful. Nearby sat a collection of shoes. Against his better judgment, he chose a pair of low heels. The moment he stood, he regretted his confidence. Walking suddenly required concentration. Every step felt like a balancing exercise. After a cautious journey of roughly 10 feet, he decided the skill belonged firmly in the category of future projects. The shoes came off immediately. Bare feet won without contest. The mix and match section became his next playground. A cream silk blouse paired with a burgundy pencil skirt transformed him into someone straight out of a vintage office photograph. Then he swapped everything for a denim button-up and a flowing floral skirt. The result felt completely different. Relaxed, rustic, unexpectedly charming. Each combination revealed another possibility. Another version of himself. Another story waiting to be imagined. And for the first time all night, Andrew wasn't trying to decide which one was correct. He was simply enjoying the freedom of exploring them all. A fitted black turtleneck paired with a plaid skirt became his next experiment. The moment he looked in the mirror, Andrew straightened his posture automatically. Chin raised, shoulders back, an expression of exaggerated sophistication settled onto his face. He suddenly looked like the student council president of some impossibly prestigious academy. The image was so ridiculous that he immediately committed to the role. For several minutes, he wandered the aisle imagining heated debates about literature and philosophy, while secretly trying not to laugh at himself. The jumpsuits proved considerably more challenging. One navy design with wide legs and a halter neckline appeared simple enough until he actually tried putting it on. 5 minutes later, he was still wrestling with straps. When he finally succeeded, however, he understood why people loved them. No coordinating, no matching pieces, no decisions beyond a single zipper. The outfit was complete the moment it was on. Simple, efficient, unexpectedly elegant. Toward the rear of the boutique, a display of retro-inspired swimwear caught his attention. A cherry-red two-piece patterned with white polka dots immediately stood out. Curiosity won. Inside a changing room, he tried it on. Unlike the athletic swimwear he'd worn earlier, this felt far more vulnerable. The top tied around his neck and across his back. The high-waisted bottoms emphasized his silhouette in ways he wasn't accustomed to seeing. For a long moment, he simply stood in front of the mirror, studying, observing. His frame wasn't what the designers had likely envisioned. He lacked the curve shown in advertisements. Yet somehow the outfit still worked. Not because it transformed him into someone else, but because it adapted to who he already was. The pattern created balance. The cut altered proportions. The overall effect felt playful rather than intimidating. For the first time all night, he found himself appreciating his body rather than critiquing it. Eventually, he changed into something simpler, a soft gray shirt dress layered over leggings, and continued exploring. An entire display of cardigans quickly became a personal challenge. Mint green, mustard yellow, cream, sky blue. One after another, he draped them over the dress. A rich plum-colored cardigan ultimately won the competition. The color somehow made the entire outfit feel complete. Nearby, an athletic fashion section revealed another surprise. Apparently, dresses existed for sports. Entire racks of them. Tennis dresses, golf dresses, performance dresses. He pulled on a white pleated tennis dress and immediately tested its practicality with a few exaggerated movements. Everything stayed perfectly in place. No adjustments required. No wardrobe malfunctions. Just comfort and freedom. The pale pink golf dress that followed made him feel unexpectedly polished, like someone who spent weekends at country clubs instead of browsing bookstores. Back in the department store, he ventured into sections he'd overlooked earlier. Professional attire, tailored blazers, structured skirts, sharp trousers. A charcoal pantsuit transformed him instantly. Standing before the mirror, he found himself unconsciously straightening his posture. He looked capable, organized, like someone whose calendar was always perfectly scheduled. Someone who attended important meetings and exchanged business cards. The formal wear department offered something entirely different. Rows of satin, sequins, layers of tulle. Dresses designed for grand entrances. Andrew selected a dramatic midnight blue gown almost at random. It was wildly impractical, which made it perfect. A sparkling shawl completed the look. Moments later, he was strolling between racks as though photographers lined both sides of an imaginary red carpet. He waved graciously to invisible crowds. Nobody applauded.
He bowed anyway.
The girls' section delivered a complete shift in mood. Matching sleepwear sets covered in cheerful prints, cartoon avocados, smiling clouds, donuts with tiny faces. He chose a lavender set decorated with stars and crescent moons. Compared to the glamorous gown, it felt wonderfully ordinary, comfortable, playful. The kind of clothing meant for quiet evenings and early mornings. His body was beginning to remind him that sleep existed. He ignored the suggestion.
For now.
A denim jacket covered in patches and enamel pins became his next obsession. Layered over a yellow sundress covered in daisies, it created a playful contrast between sweetness and rebellion. Moments later, he swapped the dress for distressed jeans and a crop top. Instant transformation. The same jacket suddenly belonged at a rock concert instead of a picnic. The coordinated athletic sets fascinated him, too. Matching jackets, matching leggings, matching tops. Entire outfits built around a single color palette. A sage green set felt both comforting and powerful, like athletic armor designed for everyday life. He could imagine running a marathon in it, or spending the entire day on a couch. Either choice seemed equally acceptable. Later, while trying on a denim pinafore dress, something unexpected happened. He caught sight of himself in a mirror and stopped. Not because of the outfit. The dress was cute enough. That wasn't it. It was his expression. For the first time all night, he noticed how peaceful he looked. Genuinely peaceful. Hours earlier, this had been about clothing, curiosity, experimentation. Now it felt like something deeper. Each outfit represented a possibility. A version of himself he had never allowed room to exist. The athletic clothes suggested confidence and energy. The business attire hinted at authority. The playful pieces embraced joy. The formal gowns celebrated elegance and drama. None of them canceled each other out. All of them belonged somewhere within him. Eventually, he changed into one final outfit, a soft pink sweater, black jeans, simple, comfortable, both designed for a different section of the store than the clothes he'd arrived wearing. Yet they fit naturally, effortlessly. Looking into the mirror, he saw someone who seemed more complete than the person who had entered the mall the previous evening. Outside, dawn was beginning its slow arrival. Faint gray light filtered through the skylights overhead. He checked the time, almost 5 o'clock in the morning. Soon, the first employees would arrive. Security patrols would return. The strange freedom of the night would dissolve. For now, though, the mall remained his. Andrew returned to the food court and settled beside the illuminated fountain. Its colored lights continued their endless cycle beneath the water. Blue, purple, green. He dipped his fingertips into the cool surface and watched ripples distort the reflections. For a while, he simply existed there, neither yesterday's version of himself nor tomorrow's, just present, just breathing, just being. The sky beyond the skylights gradually shifted from black to violet, then to the muted gray that precedes sunrise. The mall itself seemed to be waking. Distant mechanical sounds echoed through empty corridors. Heating systems activating. Machines beginning their morning routines. The day was coming whether he wanted it or not. Andrew remained where he was for a few minutes longer. The pink sweater felt soft against his skin. The jeans fit perfectly. And he wasn't quite ready to give that feeling up. Eventually he stood. The tile floor felt cold beneath his bare feet. At some point during the night, he'd misplaced his shoes entirely. That seemed like a problem for later. Moving slowly through the quiet corridors, he passed the bookstore where everything had begun. Through the darkened glass, he could see the chair where he'd spent the evening reading. The stack of books waiting to be reshelved. The ordinary world sat just beyond that window, waiting patiently for him to return. And for the first time, Andrew wasn't entirely sure he wanted to be the exact same person who had walked into it. Looking through the glass storefronts now felt strangely surreal. The bookstore where it had all begun sat quiet and dark behind him, frozen in time. The chair where he'd spent the evening reading was still visible through the window. A stack of books rested neatly on a side table, waiting for an employee to return them to their shelves. It felt distant somehow, like a scene from another lifetime. A neighboring phone shop glowed with rows of display screens illuminating the darkness. The sight made his stomach tighten. His parents, they would be worried sick by now. His friends, too. Someone had probably called the police. When the mall opened and employees discovered him, there would be questions. Lots of questions. Were you hurt? How did you get locked inside? Were you frightened? Andrew already knew exactly what he would say. He'd fallen asleep while reading. His phone had died. He'd spent the night waiting for morning. Technically true, just not complete. The missing pieces belonged to him. Eventually, he found his shoes tucked beneath a bench near the vintage boutique. Exactly where he'd abandoned them hours earlier. He picked them up but left them dangling from one hand as he made his way back toward the department store one final time. Morning light had transformed everything. The enchanted atmosphere of the night was gone. No more mysterious shadows. No more magical possibilities hiding between racks. The store had returned to being what it actually was: rows of merchandise, sale signs, price tags, mannequins, ordinary. The spell had dissolved with the darkness. Andrew picked up his faded t-shirt and held it between his hands. The fabric felt familiar, comfortable, safe. Then he glanced down at the soft sweater he still wore. Both were made of thread and cloth, nothing more. Yet somehow they represented entirely different versions of himself.
He understood that now.
The night hadn't changed the clothes. It had changed how he saw them. For several minutes, he stood quietly among the racks, thinking. He could walk away from everything, change back, go home, pretend the night existed only as an unusual story, a strange adventure that never touched the rest of his life. Or he looked toward a clearance section tucked into one corner of the store. A cream-colored cardigan hung near the front. Simple, soft, unremarkable. The price tag read £12. Nearby sat a pair of gray joggers discounted for being an unpopular size, also £12. Andrew checked the cash in his wallet. Exactly enough. His decision happened almost without conscious thought. One moment he was looking, the next he was carrying both items. A self-checkout machine sat quietly near customer service. The process was straightforward. Scan, bag, pay. A receipt emerged with a cheerful beep. £24, 2 ordinary pieces of clothing. Yet they felt infinitely more important than their price suggested. Using a pair of scissors he found nearby, Andrew carefully removed the tags and folded everything neatly before placing it inside his backpack. Then he changed back into his original clothes, the worn jeans, the faded shirt, the familiar uniform of everyday life. Looking into the mirror afterward was oddly unsettling. The person staring back looked exactly the same as before and completely different. The backpack resting beside him felt heavier than it should. Not because of the cardigan and joggers, but because of what they represented. Voices echoed somewhere beyond the entrance. Morning staff, security, the world returning. Andrew slipped on his shoes and headed toward the front doors. An older security guard was unlocking the entrance when he arrived. The man nearly jumped when he spotted him. Good grief. How long have you been in here? Andrew winced apologetically. I fell asleep in the bookstore. By the time I woke up, everything was locked. The explanation sounded ridiculous even to him. The guard studied him carefully. Then his expression softened. You okay?
Yeah.
You need someone called? My phone's dead, but I'll manage. The guard shook his head with disbelief. You spent the whole night wandering around a locked mall? Andrew shrugged. I couldn't sleep. Most people would have found a bench. Probably. The guard laughed quietly and spoke into his radio. A moment later the doors swung open. Cool morning air rushed inside. Fresh, damp, real. Come on, the guard said. Let's get you home before your family starts a search party. Outside, the parking lot was slowly coming back to life. Employees arrived one car at a time. The sky had brightened into soft shades of gold and gray. Everything smelled faintly of wet pavement and distant breakfast restaurants opening for the day. Andrew thanked the guard and headed toward a bus stop near the edge of the lot. Before calling home, he sat on a bench and opened his backpack. The cardigan was still there. The joggers, too. Folded,